Hi everybody, Miss Parnell here. Today I'm going to show you how to draw a rose. Those of you who had me in second grade, we drew flowers from observation for our Legend of the Indian Paintbrush project. And when you draw something from observation, that means you look at something very closely. You look at the lines and the shapes that make up whatever it is you're drawing, and you draw what you see. So roses are pretty complicated. There's all kinds of crazy lines and shapes in here. So what I'm going to show you today is a trick for drawing a rose to make it look like real life, okay? So we're going to kind of start in the middle of the rose where all these crazy jumbled lines are and work our way out, okay? I would suggest that you start with pencil. That way you can erase if you make any mistakes. Today I'm going to be using Sharpie so that you can see my drawing more easily. And I've done this lots of times, so I've had lots of practice. Lots of mistakes have been made in this process. So what I'm going to start with is kind of a squiggly swirl for the beginning of my rose that I just ended up closing off there. And then once I do my squiggly swirl, then I'm going to come around with just kind of some wrinkly half circle shapes that become the petals of the rose. And as I go further out, I like to make my petals a little bit bigger because those are the petals that have opened up a little more, and the outside petals are generally a larger size than the petals found on the inside. Now you don't want this to be too perfect because then it's not going to look natural. So really, if you make any mistakes, that's probably a good thing because it's going to make it look more like real life. So I think I'm going to make this rose just a tad bit bigger. And if you choose to use pencil first, you can always trace back over it with black Sharpie or permanent marker. You can color these in with markers, you can color them in with crayons or colored pencils, you can leave it black and white. Today I'm going to show you how to paint with markers like we did for our space artworks. So here's my rose, and now I'm going to do the stem. So instead of a straight line, I'm going to give it just a bit of a curve, which will give it some movement and give it a little more life. Remember that stems are narrow, okay? It's not a big thick tree trunk, but it also shouldn't be just a line. So there's my stem, and now I'm going to come with some pieces for the leaves. And when I look at the leaves of the rose, I notice that they're kind of round, but then they have a point at the end. I notice they have a zigzag edge. I notice the line of the veins in the middle and the lines coming off that center vein. I notice the leaves are bigger at the end, and as they get in closer to the main stem, they get a little bit smaller. I also notice that they're kind of growing in pairs. Right now I'm feeling like a scientist, not just an artist. So I'm going to draw the leaf, and I'm going to do a little overlapping on this one. I made the leaf look like it's behind the rose petal. Overlapping, making one thing look like it's in front of another, is a great way to make things look more like real life.
That looks like a hand.
Does it look like a hand? Looks like this one's going back a little bit. We have a huge rose bush in front of our house, and that's where I got this rose from. So our rose bush kind of looks like a tree. But you can also notice that there's not just big roses, they grow in stages. So I think right here I might put a little rose bud, which is kind of like an almond shape, but then I do a little twirl at the top. And they always have the green leaves kind of encircling it. So I'm going to draw my other leaves. And I kind of just left out the zigzag line on the edge of the leaves because I felt like that might be a little too much for this picture. So voila, that is how you draw a rose. All right guys, back for one more idea. Here's another flower that we actually received the other day. And this is a tulip. Some of you might have tulips growing in front of your house right now. These were given to us as a bouquet of flowers, so that's why it's not currently in the ground. But if you notice, the tulip is much different than the rose. Tulips are kind of easy to draw compared to roses, but you don't start in the center. We can't even see what is inside of this flower. And the way that roses kind of grow up and you see the flower, tulips kind of point up to the sky. So what we're actually going to be drawing are the sides of the petals. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to draw a tulip. And I'm just going to mix some tulips in with my roses here. So I'm going to start with this shape of the petal up here. And it's kind of an ovalish shape. We call these shapes organic shapes. It's not a true circle. It's not a true rectangle or triangle. It's a shape. Yeah, it looks like a raindrop, exactly. When you're drawing from observation, you look for shapes that you recognize and go with it, okay? So now I'm gonna draw some of the other petals. And I notice it's open a little bit here. And they all just kind of curve up in there. Now this stem is pretty strong and straight. So I know I told you not to draw straight for the rose, but for the tulip it makes more sense. And if you look at these leaves, they start at the bottom and grow up tall with a point. So I'm actually gonna do that now. And I'm gonna have it overlapping, or actually it's gonna be behind the rose, so the rose is overlapping the tulip. So there I didn't even draw the stem all the way down because I knew that the leaves would block it. So there we have a tulip, okay?
I want to do it too.
All right, let's try it.